that after each presentation, we will start with Timur. So we will go through the entire supply chain from demand planning via IBP, S&OP, financials to next system, IBP generation with Tanguy. So it's a red line in the entire agenda.
Just some setup. Okay. So welcome in demand supply balancing. Before going to the concept, I'll quickly introduce myself. So Timur Gostik, more than 20 years in various planning roles, and interesting thing about myself is first I was on both sides of barricade. So I was on the supply chain side, but also on the commercial side of the business. So I know how this planning process basically works on both sides. And on the right hand side of the page, you can see some flags. So I was working in all these markets, in all these countries. So with this, a few words about my company. I have a honor to work in Caillet. Caillet is a Japanese corporation, not very well known in Europe, but in Asia, this is sometimes called Asian Procter & Gamble. So 12.5 billion euro sales revenue, actually, each year, and then it's in chemistry, in beauty products, and so on. And you may not know the name of the company, but for sure you can recognize some of the products. So we are in mass, salon, and luxury segments in cosmetics, and you can see here some hair care, skincare product, and also perfumes and so on. So for sure you saw some of this in your countries. Okay, so enough with introduction. So before we go into the topic, basically on the balancing side, just a very quick overview of what it's all about. So in CPG or FMCG companies, in most cases, we run traditional make-to-stock model, and this is basically balancing of the demand and supply. And you can see in the middle is stock, and stock it's actually our inventory and various costs which are buffering against different mistakes on either demand or supply. So very well known concept, but just to remind what we're speaking about. So the goal here is very simple. We need to provide reasonable customer service with minimal supply chain costs. So sounds extremely simple, right? So at next slide, I'll show you how did we make it very complex over the last few years. So this is so-called spiral of planning tools, maturity and complexity. You can see maturity line on the left-hand side, and 50 years ago, we all been in a fantastic world. It was extremely simple. It was Excel on the demand side and min-max on the supply side, and we ran and we enjoy the business. And then with time, we tried to make it more complex. So forecasting software came because at that point of time, it was seen as a silver bullet for improvements. And then on the supply side, we responded with safety stock and ABC. And then we also developed launches staggering to manage new products better. Supply chain responded on the with integrating our MRP into ERP. We also invested in lifecycle management tools, and supply chain came with integrated planning or sales and operation planning. 10-15 years ago, we explored the concept of demand sensing. And this actually gave a huge opportunity to supply chain. We were able to relabel our products, and with using standard components like bottles and cup, we've been able to respond and convert much later, which gave us huge flexibility in how do we manage various demands. And then since that time, we also invested into even smarter things like product segmentation, ABC XYZ, forecast value added technique, and then supply chain responded with even more complex methodology on dynamic safety stock, for example. Recent trend for last 10 years, rather than continue working with big software packages on the forecasting, bigger company like P&G and Unilever started to explore the in-house forecasting software, which is tailored just to individual company needs. And now I think if you go in LinkedIn and check the latest buzzwords on LinkedIn and all social media and so on around supply chain, you'll see artificial intelligence on the demand side and demand-driven MRP on the supply side. So this is where we are now. So you can see that we started from a very simple concept, and over the last 50 years, we dramatically complicated that. And actually, why it is important? Because this complication of maturity is also coming with a cost, and it's either people cost to run this or software cost, various associated costs. This is important to remember before we go to the next slide. So now in COVID-19 situation, before that, we used to try to chase each and every demand in sales channels, and company used to compete with each other by growing the size of flight, bringing even more products on the market, and exploring different sales channels. With Corona coming now, I was actually surprised how consistent companies' responses. So I was in many webinars, and I'm seeing that most of the CPG companies, they're basically doing the same now. They are looking in supplying less product. They are focusing on only A and B products and only priority sales channels. And second consistent thing which I'm seeing and hearing is that all of them are basically saying, you know what, I don't think we will ever come back to this complexity we used to have before Corona. So they all want to keep that and explore how can they do or how can they run the business with this less complex setup. So assuming this is a turnaround point towards the simplicity and towards how can we run this in a simpler way, let's just think what could that go next. So what's likely to happen on the technology? So what would be the next one? And of course, this is just it's my forecast, my thinking. It kind of doesn't. It's not a kind of only true thing. So on the demand management side, and you can see the Uber logo here because it actually represents where the market is going over the last few years. I think rather than chasing each and every demand, a company is most likely to go into demand management. So it's going to be actually managing the demands to supply rather than chasing the supply to catch demand. And you can see a couple of kind of recent things which either already exist on the market a long time ago or appearing now. One of them is dynamic pricing, and you all know Uber. So when they do not have enough car, they just introduce the multiplier, and instead of getting more cars, they just making you to pay more, but at the same time, they are making sure that you get the car. So this is, I think, a great way how you can not only manage the demand, but provide a competitive advantage to other taxi companies. Different delivery options may be also used as another way how you can manage this. Product subscriptions, very fashion trend now. So lots of companies trying to subscribe and customers to the product, because in that way consumption become much more predictable and you don't need to forecast this. On supply side, what I think likely to happen with complexity reduction is that actually more and more companies will be looking for outsourcing either specific products, or sometimes they even do this for complete sales channels. I know a couple of companies who completely outsource their e-com, so they're just not doing anything about this. It's given to another provider, and they're taking care about this. And I think S&OP and IBP would become more important versus where it's been, because we implemented this in most cases long time ago. In most cases, it did not deliver what we expected, and this, I think, now is a great time to how can we bring back importance of this. That's all. It's all from me. So this is the turnaround. It was tough to get the message to you in 10 minutes. So in case you have any questions, then these are my contact details.
So hi, everyone. Thank you very much again for joining us today. So let's now talk a bit about digital communications in IBP. So my name is Shirley. I'm a chemical engineer with a strong background in digital transformations and processes. I've been in Merck since 2016. Initially, I was primarily working in global supply chain, driving the logic behind the service metrics, OTIF, back orders, and product availability. And here I was part of the digital revolution in which Merck transitioned from manual measurement to ERP-based data directly, a huge step in automation for us. Nowadays, I work as associate manager in integrated business planning. And having a stable process, my role here is to ensure its digital growth and continuity. For the ones that don't know Merck, we are a vibrant science and technology company with more than 350 years. And we have three specialty divisions, which are life science, performance materials, and healthcare. It is precisely here where I work. The healthcare divisions is all about patients. Our portfolio addresses therapeutic areas such as oncology, neurology, and immunology, fertility, and much more. In our company specifically, IBP came into the picture in 2016, 4 years ago, to solve a supply crisis at the moment. It came to stay, and its benefits resonate until today, where we work together as one for patients every day. So there's a lot to talk about connecting dots in IBP, but this is because exactly IBP it's about that. And as complex as it is, connecting people always needs, or better put, requires good communication. So today I want to take you on a short journey to discover some of the sometimes overlooked things that can help us in the way for successful communication. How important do you think communication is for IBP? Especially when you are trying to bring everybody to agree in a plan. A plan that will determine the success or failure of the company's goals. So in principle, a company could easily become a Babel tower. Each function could talk a different language, so to speak. So when we are talking about IBP, we are referring to bring these people together for a common goal and to create a synergy. Sit everyone in a common ground and magically make the languages be understandable between each other. So you can come up with many creative ideas to achieve this. There are tons of books on how to do it. But if I were trying to summarize those tips into 4 main ideas, I will say that in order to achieve having people to talk the same language in IBP, it's really important to, first of all, ensure you have harmonized concepts. So for example, when you're referring to consensus forecast, everyone understands what that means, and you do not refer to it as anything else across platforms or communications. You also need to have centralized tools, even if you have several platforms for different purposes, which is sometimes inevitable and natural. Give it a try to build a central hub for your community so they know they can go to that place to find the reference links or information on where they need to go further. Also, having clear timelines, value people's time. If possible, publish a calendar where everyone can see the key dates and adjust their processes accordingly. This will also tremendously help visualizing the different processes across the department, thus helping to align them in a more logical way. And finally, depending on your organization, consider having a single point of contact by function or location. In some organizations, these are called horizontal process owner, champions, experts, or simply spokes. This way you reduce multiple communications and have a more distributed organization, having relevant information for the people with a need. In the same spirit, we could say that to help building a successful basis for communication, we need to avoid inserting irrelevant pieces of information into the picture, creating multiple tools without a strong reason for it, or to do last-minute communications over important planned processes. So in general, anything that could lead your community to be lost in translation. So let's assume now you have your basis right. What's next? Can you simply sit back and relax? You have done great on establishing communication. Maybe let's now think about creating a community. Why is that important? A person that is simply communicated about something is someone informed. But a member of a community that receives a communication and feels engaged with the process will become an ambassador of those news and will do whatever is in their power to work towards that goal. So what makes a community nowadays? Each company will have their own ways, but at the end, we are all humans. So asking this question might bring similar answers in your organization as well. So the truth is, as humans, we need to feel involved and trustworthy. We need to feel our colleagues can understand when we are under pressure and that they can empathize with us. We need our time and efforts to be appreciated. And finally, we need to be empowered, being considered to receive trainings, acquire knowledge, and valuable information that make us grow, which ultimately will make the company grow. All of this, of course, handled in a digital environment. So keep in mind that we are, after all, still programmed in our minds to act as a tribe, to preserve our group. So do whatever is in your hands to ensure you're contributing to build strong community so everyone works towards the same thing. So we are now reaching the top of our ladder. We have talked about needs and basic rules. So how can we achieve that with digital tools? I want to give you some examples. They are not intended to be exhaustive, but to maybe open the range of possibilities that we have nowadays. First, to promote a more transparent and collaborative environment, you can promote social tools so people can get to know their peers and interact with them. The world is more and more connected than ever. So when something happens in a remote part of the world, we find out almost instantly. Is that the same case with our processes in IBP? I can only mention some of the most popular tools on this regard, such as Teams, SharePoint, and Internet. It's just a matter of leverage those tools. Use these places to promote a collaboration space where people can interact, have a dedicated frequently asked questions section, and share their experiences, good and bad. Also, cascading information doesn't always fulfill its purpose. Identify the right moments when centralized communication works best and use these spaces for it. Secondly, in the data realm or business intelligence part, things that collaborate with communication and community include having a single source of truth for the numbers, and I bet some of you are smiling with this one, having a public calendar. And this is here because more and more digital tools can provide the power to make a calendar visible to all. So no more excuses on I didn't know about that happening today or something like that. Also, try to complement your quantitative information with qualitative information. How many times a simple comment could have solved many friction and avoided many emails? So please be careful on this point, however, as creating multiple qualitative reports could go wrong in so many levels. It can create a huge amount of workload, duplicated efforts, and frustration. I want to be transparent with you. I don't have the magic solution for this because this is something we are still figuring out, but there's definitely a need of having that information somewhere. The execution part depends on your very specific organization and methodology. Last but not least, do not neglect the power of automation when it comes to communication. A lot of the daily tasks that we do today in general are candidates for automation. This has an indirect but powerful relation with IBP communications. This process is enriched through the valuable input from their members. So, if people have more time to dedicate to this valuable task, instead of doing repetitive things day after day, this is undeniable contributing with the process overall. So this new valuable task could include more collaboration between relevant actors, helping communications to flow better and be more meaningful. If you build digital tools for the IBP community, Be also sure to track its usage and ask your users frequently about their satisfaction. This is a powerful way of communicating with them and to ask their valuable feedback on a topic that concerns them. This is not only helping with engagement and trust, but also helps you to build better products overall. So I hope this brief talk can help you in some way to enhance how communications flow in your organization and how we think about digital tools in its relation with IBP. It's all about avoiding misunderstandings, creating a community, and making smart use of our digital allies to achieve an integrated business plan at the end, an IBP. Thank you very much. Opening the floor for questions.
Robert, we can't hear you.
Yes, sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, so thank you. So maybe just a brief information about myself. I'm a business and technology practitioner. I worked in the past with the traditional sales and operation planning and stakeholders, so supply chain, commercial, marketing, production actually. But in the last few years, I actually worked a lot with the financial controllers in the business, in my functions in the business, but as well recently in the consulting. And I would like to share some thoughts about how actually important it is, this functional integration and as well collaboration between the functions as being implemented as part of the sales and operation planning and IBP. Okay, so maybe we're asking ourselves a question: Quo vadis financials in S&OP and IBP? I mean, my point of view on here is very simple. It's being recognized that there is actually no fully impactful and successful IBP implementation if finance is not involved. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not here as a finance person, but actually truly an ambassador of involving them into making a decision in IBP process cross-functional. So that's maybe
Fine.
Okay, I continue. It's okay? Good. So then what is actually the integrated business planning or sales and operation planning with embedded financial all about? So what you see here on the top is a waterfall chart which helps to represent the IBP process with its 5 traditional process steps, right? So from the product review, demand, supply, reconciliation to MBR. But what is really in essence what we talk about having financials inside of it? We talk about really connecting value, volumetric and value planning with the underlying assumptions. Assumptions should help you to understand the figures in volume and in value. But what value means really? I mean, if it's truly aligned to the holistic view on the financial forecasting and planning, it should consider a revenue aspect, cost, margin, and identification of your gaps to your goals and budgets and the reference plan. So that's what you should actually think about the IBP with embedded financials. I use on purpose the word embedded because of the fact that integrated suggests or connotates very often in some of the cultures in Europe or in America with that it's actually after, that it's maybe something which happens as a side to the main process. That's why I'm sort of trying to explain this from the point of view that it's actually inside of the integrated business planning process. What it actually means from the, maybe as an example, from the product review perspective. We're talking there about the phase in, phase out, right? But those are typical things which are there being addressed. But on the top of it, very often we talk about in many industries about capturing the information about the samples and trials. And those all together have an impact in volume and value, right? So actually planning your samples, planning your trials will have an impact on your cost of goods sold, or in general on your cost side, right? So not only volumetric view and the time view when it's needed. Another example of the embedding financials is actually in the demand review. everybody is aware about the consensus unconstrained forecast and demand plan, right? Which actually should represent the view on the demand for the future. But actually, as part of this process step, if we actually considering truly financials to be embedded inside of it, we should actually discuss as well other sources of revenues. Example of it could be like if you have a services, if you have any license fees, which are actually going into the company as a revenue. And this is very often being discussed in the business. They are just different stakeholders who know this information. It's more about organizing it in order to capture this information relevant for the top line view. Another interesting thing is then with the supply element. So with the supply elements, we're talking about, as an example, introducing additional shift and the capacity. But at the end, what the controllers, financial controllers who help to help the organization to understand is what's the implication of the labor and the machine cost because of this action and the other. Another element of the financials here could be planning your provision for the write-offs. You have to reserve money because you will write off this and the other product because it will expire one point in time, right? Last not least, it's really about integrated reconciliation, where financial controlling should actually play the key role in it. Actually, in some of the companies I observe that actually controllers are taking a lead in this particular process step. They are the gatekeepers of really embedding financials into the integrated business plan and actually helping organization to capture assumptions which later on with the plan, integrated business plan, are being approved by the management in volume, value, and associated assumptions, right? On the right-hand side, though, you actually see the maybe a connection to the technology. So what you can actually think of it is that you need an integrated data model to help you to understand all the relevant information in volume and in value from the commercial perspective, but as well from the financial. Very often finance would like to understand how actually this and the other information is connected to their profit center groupings. So additional entities in your master data would actually be very helpful. Last not least, I think I mentioned this before already, it's about embedding right roles, connecting right people together. And in this respect, I would say role of the financial controllers would be extremely important. Why is that? Because one point or the other, you could actually think of it that the whole process delivers the information in volume and value up to the gross margin in the profit and loss structure. But then actually financial controllers should have their rolling financial plan very lean, because all the numbers are actually then aligned, and then they would actually need to focus on their selling expenses, updating R&D expenses, in order to come up with the profit and loss full statement. So that's maybe more about what, but I mean, what's behind it really is really the how. And that's maybe I would like to share some thoughts about how to actually think about designing and then deploying a financial as part of the IBP process. What you see on the top is actually the 5 process steps with the different colors, from white, gray. White is actually product review, gray is actually demand, supply review, yellow. Then a reconciliation and management business review as well with the gray at the end. So what it could be done is actually, and could be very helpful, is that once you have a discussion in your product review, you should actually capture the activities which are being discussed, capture the agenda points which need to be discussed in the respective process step. And then further on, what you should do actually in order to make this happen is actually to map this particular activity to the financial element. And those elements typically are reflected in the profit and loss statement which finance looks for. So at the end, you're actually building your information about the financial impact across all the process steps. What it means is that the financial controller should be actually available in all of the process steps and owning the integrated reconciliation. Because actually this would actually help not only them, but as well organization to understand the the impact of their decision in financial terms in full extent. And let's bring it even further. So why do we do this? Why do we do the integrated business planning with the financials? I would like to share 3 success factors and the key benefits out of the embedding financials and the controllers in IBP process. So first of all, it's connected to what Shirley was telling about setting up the proper roles and the communication and integration of the financial controllers in the process. That's definitely a key and essential. They will not believe the figures unless they are part of it. Second element, most probably Tanguy will mention about this one, is an integrated data model and planning engine, which should help you to actually understand the impact up to the gross margin for sure, but definitely as an option to understand the full impact of your profit and loss statement. And last not least is again connecting to what Shirley and Timur was saying, is about the calendar, connecting to the right calendar of activities, right? Structuring the meetings and having this aligned to the financial reporting will help a lot. But help a lot in what? It will help a lot to change the gravity of IBP process and management attention to the IBP. So it will attract actually the management when you start showing the financial impact. It can get, if you are supported with the good technology, make your financial forecasting up to 5 times faster. Those are real figures from the industry. And as well, data reconciliation, because you build the integrated data model, could be actually really significantly faster, and actually could a data model could actually serve as one source of truth. Last not least, on the effectiveness of the whole process, you could actually make a better decision because you're actually managing the whole flow, but as well trying to find a sweet spot between the different objectives and different functions with the financial impact as a driver to the success. So what I'm just trying to say here as a summary is that I don't see actually financials being sort of as a parallel stream or something like which happens at the end of the process. I rather see that as a key and fundamental enabler for success in S&OP and IBP, but taking into consideration aspects which mentioned by Shirley about the collaboration and hopefully which will be mentioned about the technology by Tanguy. So that's all from me.
We are, but O9 Solutions, it's a company founded in 2009. We have been on the market, especially in Europe, about the last 2 years, funded out of the I2 technology team. So very strong, let's say, DNA around planning, trying to understand what would be the latest technologies and the best way to plan a complete company processes, and we'll come back to that. We launched the platform in 2014 and successful with that, with double growth in the past 2 years, and 500 plus companies now, and 6 offices across the world. Now, when it comes to companies that are working with us, there is a really nice amount of brand names and industry leaders who have, let's say, trusted O9 Solutions to support their complete end-to-end planning. I can speak about AB InBev, where we are planning every processes, IBP, demand planning, supply planning, control tower. That could also speak about Walmart, where we are doing the supply chain distribution, fully constrained of Walmart in the US. And of course, Nestle is one of our big new customer, where we are now going to deploy IBP for Nestle globally. That's about a few weeks old type of news. That's kind of the type of customers we are working with, for which we have been able to provide them with a very strong and integrated planning platform. Now, O9 in itself, it's a planning platform that is, we call it next generation. Thank you, Thorsten, for mentioning that. Actually, the idea behind it is and was to say that there is need to come with a cloud-based, native cloud-based company solution, architecture based on the new data model, which is a mix of a graph database. That's why we call it the enterprise knowledge graph, which has a lot of flexibility, which provides a lot of capability to model the whole enterprise end to end, but at the same time have the capacity to work very much also in the details and have a fast planning, fast resolution of problems and scenario building. We feed, of course, our enterprise knowledge graph with a lot of data, which you can see at the bottom. One key thing, which is what you can see directly on the screen, is really we have commercial planning, full capability of looking at from category planning down to brand planning, account planning, have a full TPM, TPO, trade promo optimization capability, management of your product portfolio. So and I'll come back to that on the IBP discussion, but we see commercial planning in one same platform as supply chain as one of the key differentiators to achieve next generation IBP. You can see customer collaboration on the left side with joint business planning, then strong demand analytics, we spoke about it earlier, and then supply chain planning is, of course, part of all this discussion between this group of people. We talk about supply chain, I spoke about end-to-end visibility, control tower. Scenario planning is, of course, key. Having the right optimizers and solvers, and as much, and I spoke about the cost to serve, that's absolutely key. Robert spoke about the financial topic about IBP. It's absolutely crucial that financial budgeting and tracking is complete part of the planning platform solution. This is the only way to make sure that any decisions is always taken from various perspective, and financial is a key one. Sales and operation planning, I really like what Shirley you said is the different digital assistants. We strongly believe that IBP has to be managed, I would call it online, so digital meetings, and having the capacity to run real-time scenarios. So we speak about scenarios, but indeed, is it possible for you to, at a question of an executive or in the platform directly, change the data is asking, hey, why should I not be able to do 5% growth into this brand? But then what would be the supply chain answer? Can we supply, and at which cost? And the other thing, which is, we call it the e-digest and the storyboards, is that you don't have to run anymore your PowerPoint and your IBP meetings on PowerPoint and Excel, but you do it right into a platform that's on the web, so to speak. And so therefore, you present, and you can always go back to the platform immediately because it is one integrated environment. So that's 09 in a nutshell. I'm not going to spend more time about it. I just wanted to introduce this to you. Now, the reason why we speak about next generation planning, and this goes along the way to a lot of points we already discussed. What we see very strongly is that companies need to integrate vertically and horizontally their processes. We have long-range planning, which is a classic support to strategic planning. We have the rolling financial forecast planning and AOP, which is the annual operating plan with budget and target settings. We have the monthly business planning capability, and then we have what we call demand supply synchronization, or the supply and sales operation planning. Now that scope overall, it's covering, let's say, from tomorrow to the next 3-5 years, is actually one planning capability that you need to look for your company, and we O9 as a technological solution are covering all those processes into one platform. So that's what we call already the next generation IBP, and helping companies moving along the way. Now, the other topic is commercial planning, and the reason why we have this slide is really to help you and to help our customers, let's say, manage the front-end side of the IBP process, which is product management review, demand review. And if you think about it, both of those two meetings or two key processes rely on commercial planning. That means you need to be able to make your strategic plan commercial plans. You need to be able to seed all your initiatives. So that means you have your baseline activity of your running products, then you add all your building blocks of activities, can be marketing, can be trade promo, can be distribution, can be, let's say, marketing growth, etc., footprint growth into your retail channels, for example, but as well the new product introduction. Super important. We know in many companies with a 30% to 40% product churn per year, having a very strong NPI, NPD process is actually driving the gross revenue and making sure that you are pushing forward in your market. And then on monthly basis, a capacity to really plan against your forecast, bottom-up forecast versus top-down forecast. How far are we? And driving this into gap closing. From our perspective and from my perspective as a practitioner, a mature IBP process is a gap closing process. It's really about discussing how could you close the gap from a commercial perspective as much as a supply chain. But first of all, it's always about revenue. Most companies are driven by revenue gap closure. We see other companies also very focused, that's their business model, on gross margin, or let's say a profitability gap closure. So that means they are more driven, they don't really put less importance on the revenue side and really try to drive margin growth, gross margin improvements. And of course, the capacity to drive what we call post-game analysis, and that means all the analytics around what happened and how can we improve into the future. It's especially important when you look at your promo and how efficient was your marketing activities or your promotional activities. At the end, what I strongly believe is we speak a lot about demand shaping, right? And to me, if you don't have a commercial planning capability within the same platform as your supply chain planning capability and financial, of course, you cannot drive efficient demand shaping. And for the story, I mean, we look always a bit at Amazon as being also a very, let's say, a competitive and monopolistic type of company. But one of the key differentiator aspect that they have one integrated planning platform, and they can actually run real-time demand shaping because they can sense on the front side of the company how their consumers, you and me, are buying on the platform, and they sense also all the suppliers. And that thing is a key differentiator because they connect the dots from the end-to-end perspective. Now, in a nutshell, the way that we look at the IBP process is really running a commercial IBP. That's a key input, and being able to make gap analysis between target forecast, between the different drivers, having the simulations for closing the gap with the different capabilities. And this is then back to the classic discussion we had on different demand scenarios. The different demand scenarios are coming from commercial planning. And you can imagine that if you want to do it right, every market which is running a commercial planning can have 5 different gap closing activities on their market. But then we are going to the right side with a supply chain, which is usually a regional and global type of supply chain, which needs to absorb all those demand scenarios and being able to come back with a commercial supportability and a cost to serve what ifs. What do we mean by that? Is that you have to be able to come back from each single initiatives. Can I do it? Yes or no? So that means incrementally, you can start to decide and pick your commercial activities depending on the feedback from supply chain and the cost to serve. That means the margin that you will get at a given customer. So that, from our perspective, this is really much driving what will be the demand scenario selection, because you know the answer from supply chain, and then you drive your executive IBP with a very strong financial planning. And we have proven with some of our customers that we can generate a very detailed P&L, and that is helping customers to take on a monthly basis the right decision. Now, last slide. What are the key drivers, or let's say, what are the key value prop behind it and the key capabilities? For us, IBP runs around 2 different things: profitable growth and increased reliability in achieving your financial business plan. This is, again, fully in line with what Robert presented. A mature IBP process is the one that gives the security back to your CFO that the numbers is promising on the market is the one that is going to happen. And that is actually more and more, and I see it as a strong differentiator, that the CFO is on board of an IBP initiative and actually is seeing it as a strong way to create his rolling financial forecast and to feel more comfortable into what can I get back to the market. What are the capabilities required? We have 5 of them, the way we see it. One is, of course, detect demand risk and opportunities early on, and you should monitor your leading indicators. I spoke about using external data. We see leading indicators as a key differentiator of an IBP process which is mature versus one which is not mature. then understanding the root cause of the gaps is also absolutely key. Yeah. How many times do you have IBP meetings or S&OP meetings where people are arguing for bad performance, let's say from the past month's data, and at the end of the day, there is still not really any strong learnings which is coming out of it. And that's something that we need to have the analytics in the platform driving this and focusing you on the 3, 4, 5 key topics where there was an issue with the performance, positive or negative. Understanding this actually helps you drive better quality of drivers. That's what we want to do. Now, improve the quality of the commercial forecast using analytics and machine learning techniques. So that means not just limit yourself. Of course, an S&OP process has been so much about supply chain doing demand forecasting. And somehow, go to sales marketing and say, hey, what is the latest information, so you can integrate this back into your volume forecast. I think we are past this for a long time now. So if you want to evolve in your IBP process, sales and marketing needs to be driving this. That has to be a commercial forecast. Real-time scenario planning and supply chain scenario planning for evaluating the full P&L impact and gap closure activities, it's absolutely key. We see it as a strong differentiator for mature IBP processes. Final one, IBP is a decision-making process. It's a decision-making process across your company, and that means that if you take decisions, they need to be fact-based. And to be fact-based and to drive accountability up to the executive level require a right collaborative planning platform. Shirley spoke about a few different, let's say, capabilities. We strongly believe that a technology like ourselves is also supporting this type of capabilities, and that's absolutely required to drive the next generation IBP. And on this, let me conclude on my presentation. I think in this case, we see many different discussions, but as a conclusion, what I would like to say is we don't see, and I don't, as a practitioner for many years, that's also the reason why I wanted to work for Online Solutions, is I see that technology, the right one, is not anymore a blocker, a bottleneck, a roadblock to improving your IBP process. The right technology can actually accelerate your IBP journey because it will remove the data silo, as I was speaking about. It will create the transparency of information that you need by integrating the commercial world, the supply chain world, and the financial world together. And having that is actually going to ensure that people can finally really collaborate and stop about, arguing around numbers where those numbers don't speak to each other. So that would be my conclusion. Really appreciate your attendance and this time to listen to my presentation.
So first question, maybe I start with Timur and ask, what are your key challenges at the moment, Timur?
Well, this is what I mentioned. So it's the complexity. How can we reduce it, and how does the future setup and process look like?
How about you, Shirley?
Well, I have two main challenges. One of them is creating qualitative information from the numbers that we see, because we have real good numbers, but we don't have explanation behind that, without creating too much workload to our people. So this is a challenge. And a second one is we realized with COVID-19 how slow our technologies are to react to disruptive events. So we need to modify the way we show things to our stakeholders, and we need to wait long times for technology to accomplish this. So we have a lack of, let's say, responsiveness on unexpected events.
Robert, anything from your side? Your key challenges?
I mean, I'm not sure if it's a challenge, but to set up yourself for success. If I may take a quote from my mentor who actually taught me Six Sigma, he was saying success depends on the quality and acceptance, actually multiplication of the quality and acceptance. In this case, I would say to set up yourself successful in IBP, I would say it's about the quality of IBP process and enabling processes, technology, But on the acceptance level, so this which multiplies, actually could set this to 0, is collaboration and leadership. So I see this quality and acceptance factor, so multiply by each other, as a key element to set up yourself for a success. And that's not easy, and that's, I think, a challenge.
Tanguy?
I think on my side, I mean, we'll not speak about our challenges from the fact that we receive a lot of demand for our capabilities, because I think I would take it from a COVID situation perspective. I think many of our clients and prospects have been seeing how difficult it was for planning for the past few months. And I think for many companies, they may have thought like, let's say we are good to go so far. So that means what we have is okay-ish to stand for another 5 years. Then came COVID, and all of a sudden it kind of like restarted the thinking. Maybe we thought that we will have still 5 years to go with our current technology, but now actually is the time to really go for it. And we see a big increase of demand for that. That's point one. Second point is that the learnings of those companies is okay, but at the end, a major event is still 2 to 3 years away every year. What we mean with that is, you know, it can be Fukushima, it can be COVID, it can be, let's say, a trade war. It can be many different things that can actually disrupt supply chain in many different ways. So it's not just anymore COVID, which was kind of like maybe a black swan, but it can actually be many other things which regionally disrupts your supply chain. So I think it's time now for rethinking your technology platform for the next 10 to 15 years. We see that a lot. And I would say also the challenges for planning next year is going to be tough on demand side, because I think we will not be able to rely on 2020 past data anymore. So that is actually asking, we have quite some discussions with demand sensing, using external factors into your demand plan to start to understand beyond your company and for sure beyond your sales history, because 2020 will not repeat probably, and we hope in 21, 22, 23.
Yeah, we hope that it's not repeat. Indeed,
exactly.
That's the true word. Nobody hopes that 2020 will repeat. That we really can hope. Nevertheless, I would be curious to learn maybe about what you think about the future of supply chain, Shirley.
Less effort on using technology in the wrong way and letting it to work for you, and applying more effort on creating meaningful collaboration between the functions, which is really what IBP is about.
Mm-hmm. Robert, any statement from your side?
I stand behind what Shirley say. I would say that we're going into direction as one of the leaders, actually from Merck, right, was saying that we're talking about here supply chain, self-driving supply chains, but without the collaboration between the functions enabled by the right technologies, which actually enable the self-driving supply chain planning, or generally the business planning, as we're saying, as part of IBP, it will not happen. So I still stand behind the thing, this Q and quality and acceptance. So there is a combination of the factors which could make you successful, and future is about a combination of both.
Yeah, I just want to comment from my side on this question. I think the supply chain is the future of the company, because supply chain, or a successful company, is the deployment of the strategy. The execution of a company strategy goes via the supply chain, and now it has become clear that supply chains are needed and important. That is the positive part of that negative situation in 2020, that supply chain is not just some unnecessary function, but it is a key element, and then you can differentiate against competition if you have a good supply chain. So it's no longer just pricing and company against company, but it's also competition of supply chains. And then here I have another question to Tanguy. How should staff been managed and trained in order to enable the digital transformation then? Because we're talking about the technology, but how about the people?
No, well, no technology without people, and I think that's that story. You know, like a supply chain will be managed by a man and a dog, and you know, and the dog is there to avoid the man to touch the system. That's not yet to happen. Yeah. So no, I think let's put it differently. What I like to say is that we do a lot of education. It's actually one of the key things which surprised me, and I was also in the business last year, spent 10 months as SVP supply chain. Mm-hmm. The amount of, let's say, sometimes of not understanding and not knowing what is happening out there. So I mean, going out of your four walls of your company to understand what is possible. Actually, we have seen such an increase of capabilities in the digital technology world in the past 5 years that actually what you thought you knew is probably not anymore true. And what you think you know is probably to be still challenged because there might be some misconceptions. So my key message behind it is, yes, there is a huge need to train, to educate leaders down to planners, to reconsider your old paradigms into new paradigms, to really think out. I mean, again, you know, there is these stories about Henry Ford who said, like, if you know, if we were asking the people, we would give them faster horses and not cars. We are exactly in the same situation right now, which is actually most of the people we met sometimes don't have a good understanding about how capable the new technology platforms are, and therefore they are completely changing the way processes and organization will work in the future, and our supply chain will work in the future. And so that's my message behind it. It's training, but also it's self-education. People need to feel that they have to learn and they have to get out of their comfort zone here.
Yeah. But that's a question also of management, I think. Timur, how would you help enable your staff to train and manage digital transformation?
I mean, pragmatically very simple, because in all of the companies now, we are running some e-commerce project in one way or another. In a few companies, this is done by brands, by channels, by countries. The best way to learn is you just take part of the project. Of course, you can do some external benchmarking and go around and try to speak to people in your network how they did this, what kind of challenges they have. There's lots of content on the market. The best way to learn is just be part of that.
But what I see as an issue, just to comment a little bit also from my side at this question, is that focus on famous talent management, but on the high sophisticated skilled talents. But any company is having also those people who make the wheel go round and then are the clockwork of the company. And I think it's also important to think about training, education concepts to get them enabled to run with the modern systems. And from my perspective, digital transformation is when the people just don't work only with the tools, but also start manipulating them in a way that there's something new created. Then it's transformed. That's what I think and believe in this question. Yeah. So thank to all of you. Come up with very good ideas, and the crisscrossing today was perfect. Everybody of you was having certain expertise along the chain, and nevertheless also different perspectives, but there was overlapping parts. We see if you work in a supply chain, one of the key elements is communication, exchange, and collaboration, and that's, I think, we have shown fantastically, and I really would love to do this again with all of you soon.
Thank you, Thorsten, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.